Hey everyone, this is Seth Colaner. I'm the AI editor for VentureBeat, and I'm here live at Transform 2019 with Brian Bagdasarian, who is the lead for digital content strategy of LogMeIn. So we're here actually on the Conversational AI Summit stage, so this is quite appropriate for your role. And so just give us a little bit of a rundown of some of the challenges that you face trying to make conversational AI work for your business.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I think we and every business out there struggles with is our goal is to make conversations feel helpful, human, and holistic, even if there is no human involved. And that's a really big ask, because the way that we as people have conversations, we have things like long and short-term memory. We know the rules of conversation. We have expectations of conversation. And every one of those things that we do innately and that we've done since a year or two old, we have to be able to replicate programmatically. And in order to do that, we have to create a lot of systems that support that conversation that the average user will never ever see. We have to be able to collect information. We have to be able to store that information. We have to take it from a private position in someone's head and make it public so that we can access it. We have to be able to craft different conversations for different kinds of people and be able to identify that. All of these things come into play, and when it's done effectively, it's massively successful. And when it's done awfully, we have Twitter bots that learn how to become racist and swear.
Right. Right. The famous Tay
exactly.
Right.
And the thing is that any system that relies, like Tay did, purely on this sort of non-supervised or semi-supervised machine learning process could go that way. So we have to make sure that we don't build it that way, that we build it with rules and guidelines, just essentially parenting this small AI child
right.
through to maturity, and accepting that we're going to have to teach it things along the way and constantly be doing that, just like a parent does.
Right. Well, so you mentioned memory, which is a really interesting. Well, first of all, it's an interesting part of humanity, but when it comes to these conversations, it seems to me that so many of the chatbots and smart assistants, the memory part has been really missing, right? You're trying to make a command and you have to think hard about what you're saying because it misses the context, and then you have to start over again instead of saying, I need a thing, doesn't quite understand, asks you for a follow-up, and you can keep going and it sort of holds that thread. So to speak to that a little bit, the challenge of essentially creating a robot memory.
Absolutely. Well, first off, everyone on the planet screams at their Alexa like a bad dog.
Yes,
Alexa, turn off the lights, and it becomes insane. But that ties into this idea of that there are roughly 8 ways that you can ask a question, and then there's assertions and commands. So who, what, where, when, why, how, which. Yes, no, and then commands and assertions. So an assertion is I like pizza, a command is get me a pizza. And a lot of us just fall into that, Alexa, get me a pizza. There's the running joke of Jeff Bezos said, Amazon, order Whole Foods, and it said buying Whole Foods. And now we have
He had the cash on hand.
Yeah, he's got a massive credit limit. His Amex card is like mega platinum diamond crescent.
Right.
But when it comes to building those conversations, for everybody else, that idea of memory, and that's something that we at LogMeIn are really working on aggressively, and is this idea of there's a combination of intent-based things. This is how a lot of the industry works. Dialogue flow and API.ai and all those ones that are out there, where it's just trying to guess what you're saying every time. Right. And every time you say it, it sort of just resets itself. Mm-hmm. And you might be able to store something here and there. And then you have, ones like HubSpot, Drift, Motion AI, where I was a partner with that, where it's very scripted and linear.
Yeah.
And you can sort of store certain things along the way. What we're doing is we're looking at taking this idea of memory and bringing it one step further, which is if you and I ran into each other on the street getting a coffee a week from now, you would remember what we had talked about.
Right.
Well, so do we. So do we as LogMeIn. You would remember maybe my name. You would remember certain elements of previous conversations and carry that forward.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. How frustrating is it when you call up a company and you have to give the same information like 6 times in the same phone call.
Right.
So
right.
why is this not carrying over?
Right.
Well, it's massively frustrating. And what happens is that it drives NPS scores down and it makes everyone upset. So with how we're doing it is we're looking at building this contextual statefulness, which is a complicated way of saying we get where we are. We understand what's going on, we understand where we are and how we got here. And using that to start to leverage how that conversation progresses forward. If I was sitting here and all of a sudden, like my eye turned red and started bleeding, you might mention it to me. Right. You wouldn't ignore it. But if it didn't do that, we'd still keep talking. And and so that sort of ability to adapt and adjust the conversation based on what happens in real time is something that for us and how we're building things going forward is really important and is really core to sort of our strategy. And where that ties in is then this idea of shared knowledge versus private knowledge. Now, private knowledge is I know, right? Shared knowledge is we know.
Sure.
So with Bold360 AI, one of the really cool things is once you have that knowledge base built out, it doesn't matter how you access it. You could access it through a chatbot. You could access it through a support page. You could access it, as a live agent on the inside of the company. As they're having a live chat, that information is coming up. Because that shared knowledge is what powers, along with memory, the ability to craft really powerful conversations. And it's something that I think we're pretty unique in the industry at, is having this ability to create one pool of knowledge and then having it used over and over and over again. Right.
Well, can you talk a little bit about how that plugs in? So, there is this, as you said, there's this big base of knowledge, and there's sort of how you access it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about accessing it with some sort of memory involved, right? So there's something that's sort of cached in a way.
Yeah.
And it also is somewhat predictive then too, right? I mean, that's the idea of memory. Like we can bump into each other on the street, and we can predict a little bit where the conversation might go. We're not going to start again and introduce one another. What is your name? What is your name? What is your title? Right? Like we've already got.
Right.
There's something predictive about that.
You carry it forward.
Right. So there's, I think there's a conversation tree, right? So can you speak to how your technology plugs into that knowledge base to not just have that statefulness, but also kind of how that carries forward?
So some of the internal things that we're working on right now that we're testing and we're developing is that idea of what we have today for a conversation is relevant later on. It's this idea of a system of record. That could be Salesforce or Marketo, or it could be it's something homegrown. But we have to have some place to store that information. For us, it's our minds.
Yeah.
Robots don't have, chatbots don't have minds. They have a database. So starting with that, and then so that the next time they come in, we can identify who that person is, if we know anything about them, and we know even if they've come back a second time is important. And we're able to then start to talk to them based on what we already know about them, and then progress that conversation forward. Now, where that shared knowledge piece comes into play, where that ability to then access that information is, I may come the first time with a certain set of requirements and needs and questions. Shared knowledge. I may come the second time, different questions, different situation. Maybe I bought here and now I need support. Well, one universal truth is that the customer doesn't care about your internal Chinese walls. They care about getting an answer, the right information at the right time. And that's how we're able to kind of put that together. Now, from that memory standpoint of it, the ability to use that logically to reason. I mean, if I saw you on the street and I just screamed at you, I like lobster, you might turn the other way and walk away. Right.
Or I might go with you to a lobster restaurant.
Or we might go to Luke's Lobster and just call it good. I have lobsters on my shirt. But with that, it's this idea of, even with that memory, there's still rules to the conversation. You would probably say, "Hey, Bri, what's going on? Hey, what's going?" That banter back and forth. We replicate that, and we understand that maybe if the last time you left off doing something, what we're working on right now is developing the ability to carry on that conversation just as a check-in.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard your dog was sick. How's your dog doing? Oh, your dog's great. It's actually got all better. Fantastic.
Right.
Move forward. So that's all rules, though. And then that's the beauty of it, is those rules are really easy to teach a system.
Okay. Yeah, well, so I was going to say that's, you have to program a lot of that out, right? I mean, can you speak to the technical challenge of actually, right? The decision trees don't grow on trees, right? You have to make them, right?
Yeah. So there's, it's sort of two things. One is this intent-driven stuff, this idea of what you say is where we start. And that is something that we actually used, different kinds of neural networks and machine learning. There is a difference. To kind of figure that out. And then from there, we work into the rules of that conversation. And it's basically a cascading rules engine. Okay. So in order to do that, we have to say, okay, here's what we know, here's what we said. Then we start to evaluate where those things cross. And depending on that is how we move the conversation forward.
Yeah, and so how long did it take you guys to go from A to B? So one of the things that has been talked about on some of these stages yesterday and will today is really the business application of these things, especially for some companies that are not especially large. The idea of going from not AI to AI, it feels like an impossible gap.
It's entire industry.
You guys have done that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we've done at LogMeIn is we've established an AI center of excellence in Herzliya, Israel, and we're doing a lot of hires right now around that space. But for us, I think what really it comes down to is we recognize that AI by its nature should not be something that you notice.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
It should be seamless. And as we are building systems, and products that are designed to work in harmony with people. Rather than what I think a lot of the industry is doing is, oh, it's AI, it's AI, it's AI. Yeah, but you don't do anything. You're just overcomplicating a situation. There's no tangible net benefit. Everything that we're creating has tangible net benefit. With Bold360 Advise, we are using AI to assist a human operator in having a better conversation that's more effective. In our support center stuff, we're using AI to disambiguate and understand when somebody maybe isn't as clear as they need to in the question, but we don't ask them to restate it. We offer them things that are similar. In some of our marketing and sales stuff that we're doing, we use AI to have multiple conversations with people over time and progress them forward in the buyer's journey. None of those times are we saying, oh my God, it's AI. What we're saying is, oh my God, you're gonna have a better experience. Mm-hmm. And that's what drives LogMeIn right now, is we are driven by this idea of creating a better experience and acknowledging that people are involved in that process, but so are other things, AI being one of them. But that AI should never be at the forefront. It should always be a seamless piece of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the comment about how the human element is still very much there, because I think sometimes people have a negative reaction to the idea of communicating purely with a non-human, regardless of how it feels. If they're not really talking to a real person, they can kind of get a little, disturbed a little bit. But I think what you're saying is that in your solution, it's sort of both and. Right. You're using AI to sort of empower the humans behind the scenes.
It's interesting. There's a metric out there. It's like 60-something% of people do not care if they're talking to an AI or a person as long as they get their answer. The issue, and most people, if you ask them why did they have a bad experience with the chatbot, for instance, the reason they had a bad experience is that when they needed a person, there was no one available.
Right.
Chatbots, conversational AI, all that stuff, it is driven around this idea of it has to be used when you have low cognitive load, low brain power requirements, but high repetition. Mm-hmm. What that does is that frees up your actual people to use their brains, which is why you hired them in the first place. Right. And again, I go back to this idea of harmony, of let the bot do this, let the people do this, and make them both available. Now, I mean, at LogMeIn, like on our own sites, we don't have live chat support on every product. But what we've done is we built really helpful virtual assistants that are very self-aware in saying, hey, I am just a bot. I can't help you with this, but here's where you need to go. Right. And the people element is never going to go away. You're never going to teach a chatbot, a conversational agent, to be as good as a person, but at everything. But what you can do is make it really good at certain things. Right. And that's what we're empowering our customers to do, and what we're doing ourselves internally is we're building chatbots that are really good at answering pricing questions. We're building chatbots that are really, really good at sort of figuring out which product works for somebody, or really, really good at helping someone troubleshoot their Dyson vacuum. Because most of those things are going to be one of three things. Like, oh, it's not working. Is it plugged in? No. Okay, you solved it. That kind of thing. Or which one works for me? Well, this one's going to be better for this hair. What kind of hair do you have? And kind of working down through those trees. Yeah, you have to build them. But it's spent a little bit more time up front and a lot less time down the line. Mm-hmm. And you can have massive cost savings. You can have, think about it. If every one of those conversations, password reset questions, take an average of 5 minutes to have in a managed service environment. 5 minutes at 1,000 times a day is 5,000 minutes a day,
Right, it adds up.
right? And that same conversation could be had by a bot. If I can save you 5,000 minutes a day, and if that minute costs you on average $1,
Right.
I just saved you $5,000 a day for something that maybe, you had to spend 10, 20, 30, 50 grand at one time, but that's
It's a daily savings.
Exactly.
Right. So it it creates greater engagement for customers, speed for customers. It empowers your human agents to actually accomplish their goals faster, and ostensibly it can save a great deal of money.
A huge amount of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for your time and insight, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your session. We have tons of sessions for the rest of the day. I will be at many of them, and we'll see everyone in the live stream.